Plant killers, I love it.
You have friendly music and then plant killers. Listen, we don't mean to. We mean well, Frankie. What are we doing wrong? You're going to help us today.
Yeah, so many people out there right now, because of our limited size and condominiums and whatnot, all are really gravitating towards houseplants. Like right now, indoor plants are really popular, and a lot of frustration. I get emails all the time where people are like, I killed my plant, I killed my plant. There are a few, like here's an example.
This is our sad office collection, everybody.
I just went through the office, grabbed a bunch of plants off some desks just to show a few examples. So we have a daffodil here, which is a spring bulb. You know, this one here, don't get too sad.
Crunchy. Hold on, guys, you have to hear this. Is this a bad sign, Frank?
Well, it's a spring bulb, so.
It's crunchy.
Yeah. It's a spring bulb. So what I mean by that, this is a potted plant that's really meant just to be enjoyed for a short period of time. And then it's going to go through its cycle, and then it's done. It's done.
Oh, so it's toast.
It's kind of like a bottle of wine. You enjoy it for a short period of time, and then you go. You know, with daffodils, you can repot those outdoors a little bit later on when the ground frost gets out, and maybe get them to encourage them to come back.
So you cut them down to the base?
You're just going to let them, that foliage go all the way brown, and then that's going to make the bulb go back into a period of dormancy. You pot them outside, the bulbs themselves in the fall, they'll rebloom next year.
There is a second chance.
There's a second chance. So let's talk about some common things right now. So when it comes to killing plants, a few people, and you said you have a plant at home right now.
A tree, like it's a plant, but it's a tree.
Okay. And you said when you're watering it, the water just sits there.
It's sitting there. It's not absorbing at all. The leaves are not blooming again. I've revived it 3 times. This time, nothing.
Okay, so one of the #1 failures that people have when they're actually repotting their indoor plants is they put them into these decorative pots, and they think that pot is so pretty, but it's no drainage. And, you know, you take a look at this first image that we have here, too, for you. And when it comes to a pot, if it doesn't have any drainage, there's a look at a spathiphyllum, which is also known as a peace lily. If it doesn't have any drainage, it's like us sitting in a bathtub for 7 days straight, 24 hours, it's going to get root rot. So
but it's indoors.
It's indoors, but the thing about a root on a plant is a root is where they're going to breathe. A root is also the area where they absorb moisture and nutrient. And if it's sitting wet all the time, it needs a period to be wet and then dry. Wet and then dry.
Okay.
And this goes to the second problem. A lot of people then go pot their plants, and they just go and think any old soil is just any old soil.
Sure.
So the other big thing that people do wrong is they use the wrong soil. So you can take a look at an example of another plant that we have here in an image of the wrong soil, where it's just really a garden soil that you're using, one that's meant for the outdoors. And if you're using too much of a heavy mix, that's going to make the plant sit wet again. And a good indication that your plant's sitting wet or you're using the wrong soil, see that little bit of almost appears like a moss on the top of the soil? That's a good indication. So that's the wrong soil. So that's another reason.
So what is the correct soil?
You want to use a potting soil. So potting soil is going to have little white pellets in it, which is known as perlite. Potting soil is mostly a soilless mix, which is mostly peat moss, that has this ability to absorb water and then dry out. It's like a sponge. Absorbs water, then dry out. Really important. If it dries out too much, you have to water it once, and then wait about 10 minutes, and then water again. Like a sponge. You know, a sponge, if a sponge is totally dry, it won't accept water.
Yes.
How you have to moisten the sponge first so to accept water.
Okay, okay, so, that makes, wrong location is also the other one you're saying, Frankie, is a problem.
And too little water. I wanted to show something too. First off, and when it comes to watering, because a lot of the times people out there are, well, they don't have time. Right?
You forget.
So because they don't have time, they sometimes go and just don't water enough. Here's the wrong location one. I wanted to show you an example. So this is pothos. On the left side is pothos where it was planted and put in a location of a north to east facing window, because pothos likes a little bit of an indirect light. The one on the right side was put in a west and south facing window that was right beside the window and too bright. Knowing your plant and selecting the right plant for the right location, indoors as well as outdoors, is the #1 rule. So if you have a bright window, yucca. Yucca's a good thing that you would want to do. If you don't have that much light, pothos is a really good idea for you, or even spathiphyllum. So figure out the light that you have. East or north facing, that's more of low light loving plants. West, south facing windows, those are more plants that like a lot of light,
and read the label or ask questions or just Google it when you're shopping for plants.
Just Google.
Based on what,
yeah, you can actually
light.
go, you can look at the name and you can just go right on if it's not on the plant tag.
Yep.
We have information so much everywhere.
Winston C has kept this thing going for 4 years. It's had on and off periods of growth. Is it thriving? Is it okay?
Oh, that's a bamboo. So that's the lucky bamboo. And the lucky bamboo gets like this over time. But this one here is doing well. And with the lucky bamboo, you know, Winston knows that bamboo likes its feet wet.
Yeah.
So this one here, he's kept it really moist, kept water there. The roots have been healthy. It's been happy. A lot of the times it's improper watering that a lot of people have the issue with. So one of the #1 reactions people have is when a plant doesn't look healthy is they just say, it needs more water. It needs more water.
Overwater.
It needs, and you remember back when we took chemistry and biology, do you remember osmosis?
Yes.
Remember when something's saturated?
Yes.
What happens? What's the look of something that's saturated? A cell that's saturated will look
Was that
full.
a saturated cell? It was too plump, wasn't it?
Too plump,
Yeah.
and if they get too plump, they'll fall over as well.
Yeah.
Right? So sometimes you got to always use your finger to make sure that you put your finger in to make sure that it's drying out in between waterings.
Okay.
Because like no drainage, if you have too much water, it's going to be a harm. And then on the other side is too little water. What I want to let people know right now that our daylight hours are getting beyond 12 hours,
Yeah.
you got to increase the watering of your indoor plants now all the way through until October.
They're drying
and
out
now's the
faster.
time to start fertilizing your plants. And see that one there on the back, it has a water globe? Water globes sound like a good idea, but they're not really. The best idea is just your good old finger.
Finger test?
This one here is a little bit on the wet side, so we got to let that guy dry out.
So if it feels wet, finger test, let it dry out.
Yeah.
Do not water it, and daylight will tell you what to do based on the finger test, right? It'll be drier sooner.
The more days you have of sunlight, the more water it's going to need. If we had periods like this of just gray skies, it's not
Yeah.
going to need that much water.
Great advice. Thank you so much, Frankie. That's for all of us plant killers out there. We'll be back with more BT right after this. So she